Yo, I got this light on me and your girl is going gray. It's happening. Shit. Whatever. I'm embracing it. Okay, guys, I'm here to ramble at you about this whole mess in my brain that is a mix of struggles and solutions. I got a whole cauldron of thoughts in here that surround the same vibe, topic, feeling, direction. And instead of trying to be like this clean girl aesthetic, super organized, that ain't me. It ain't me. Look at me. Do I look like I operate that way? No. So instead, I'm going to show up the way that I show up here because I think those that get it will get it. And if you don't, you can scroll by and it ain't your thing. That's fine. I hope that somebody listens to this and they pick one thing up, maybe two things that helps their life. And I save you a little bit of time and I save you a little bit of struggle. Because a lot of the things that I'm going to talk about and thought dump about, I have had to find out completely alone by myself. And I have just had to mine little nuggets from just directly struggling. You know how they say, like, necessity is the mother of invention, kind of like that. Like, I just haven't had a choice. So I've had to figure some stuff out. So I'd love to pass some of those thoughts on. And a lot of it is surrounding this big old pot in my mind about achieving goals. I don't want to say manifesting. I hate that word. That's not what I'm talking about. Task management, neuro-divergence, executive function, getting where you want to be, making life work for you, radical allowance, anxiety, chronic illness, all these things. And kind of talking about and sharing how have I personally made life work for me in a way that feels good? And can that help you at all? I am just like a video game character that has a little toolbox full of a lot of things I've gathered along the way. And they're all mixed up in there. Nothing's labeled. Nothing's labeled. It's just in there. And I'm hoping that I can thought dump enough of it out that somebody can take away something good from it. And there's so many things that go into this. It's not just, oh, here's how you get stuff done. No, screw that. This is like, okay, you're dealing with abject trauma, you're dealing with anxiety disorder, you're dealing with chronic illness. How do you navigate life in a violent capitalist hellscape with crippling neurodivergence? Basically, that's the vibe, okay? That's the vibe. And let me just segue with this. I feel like forcing ourselves to show up in that way in the world is the act of violence against ourselves, okay? So let's just dive right in. Let's use me as an example. On this topic, the world would say, hey, you need to show up and you need to have an outline and like, what are we talking about and what topic is this? And it needs to be in a neat little bow and it needs to have 3 steps attached to it. That ain't how I work. And the difference between me and someone else, and this is what I want to zero in on, I'm going to do it anyway, and I'm going to show up in the way that my brain operates and hope that I find the right peeps that vibe with that. I'm not going to be violent to myself and show up in the way that the world says that I should show up. Boom, right there. When I'm talking with people about life, task management, achieving goals, social media, consistency, whatever you want to, whatever is that hurdle for you. It is not about saying, hey, you need to show up like me. Hey, you need to show up in this way. You need to do these 3 steps and then you'll be good. You need to force yourself to do this. It is the complete opposite. It is how do we locate what works for your brain and then show up for ourselves within that. It's all about showing up for yourselves, because I think when you start to talk about goals, motivation, tasks, anything surrounding that topic, I think people's brains shut off because I think they think this is someone they're going to shame me. They're going to tell me how I'm not doing enough. This is, just another comparison that's going to suck for me. It's really not about that. At least it's not about that coming from me, because that doesn't work for me. It's about biohacking into your own personal customized brain and finding out what works for you. If you don't do it that way, you're going to fail. You have to customize that to yourself or you will fail. You will feel paralysis, you will feel shame, you will feel burnout, and it'll happen over and over again. And the crappy thing about that is that every time that happens, every time you hit burnout, every time, you're like, this isn't working for me, you produce shame and you become a shame factory. That's like, why am I not doing as good as they are? Why am I not showing up in the way I can't do? And you're producing shame. You don't need to do that. You don't need to do that. You don't need to do it. You don't. You need to find what works for you and lean hard into that. Let's get into an example, okay? Social media is an easy one. It's a huge barrier for a lot of people. I talk to a lot of people that are like, I want to show up on social media, but I don't like being on camera. I don't like my face on camera. It sends me into a spiral. It gives me a lot of anxiety. It's just too much of a hurdle for me. Let's get into creative solutions. Okay. So let's say that's a barrier for you. Instead of being violent to yourself and saying, I have to force myself to do this the way other people are doing, don't do that to yourself. Don't harm yourself in that way. Show up in a different way. There are programs that can create an avatar of you that you can do voice into. You can do written text on a page. Again, I'm just talking about social media. Because as much as we demonize social media, it shows us what we have going on. It's such a mirror. Now, social media can be yucky. It's got its problems. It's got its toxicity. There's this movement right now where people are like, I'm trying to stay off social media, which is so important. Please find out what your boundaries are and stick to them. But it's also this necessary tool we need. And I just see so many people, they're showing up in shame. They're showing up in shame because either they're not doing enough or they're doing too much and it's damaging them. We need to take the shame out of it. Now, reducing shame surrounding social media is a whole podcast I could do. We could do a whole podcast on that, but that is just barely touching on a real world example of how you do not need to force yourself to show up the way that everyone else is showing up. You don't need to do it. And guess what? If you do, it's not going to hit. It's not going to resonate. Nobody likes it. If you're showing up and you're like, oh, I'm making the reel and I'm making the post, people can feel it, dude. People can feel it. They feel that you fucking hate it. They can tell. So just don't do it. It's better to not do it. Let's give another real world example. Let's say you're like, I'm against social media for ethical reasons. I don't engage with Meta, da-da-da-da-da. Hand out physical flyers. Print something in the newspaper and do it with gusto. What I'm trying to illustrate through these teeny tiny examples, and I can go way deeper into those, is if it is violent to you to show up the way that other people show up, stop doing it. Especially if you are neurodivergent, you have mental health issues going on that you're trying to manage through, you have chronic illness, things like that. Stop comparing yourself to other people. It will never, ever work. Now, it might work a little bit. Is that a route that people can go? You can push yourself to show up in a way, and then you can eventually get more comfortable with something, and then it becomes routine and you're cool. Sure. It's a little violent to yourself. It's self-abandonment, and it's not going to communicate authenticity. And it's not going to feel good to you. And you'll continue that cycle of burnout, activity, burnout, shame. That's what comes out of the vending machine when you do that. Shame, crappiness, inauthenticity. So don't do it. Do something else, though. That doesn't mean don't do it and full stop freeze there. This is the tricky bit with this type of stuff when it comes to task management, achieving goals, executive function, all these things that surround motivation and getting things done and consistency and discipline and all these things, whatever that big old pot is. There is a very tenuous relationship where you got two things sitting on each shoulder. One thing sitting on your shoulder is, I need to be gentle and care for myself and show up in the way that works for me and honor myself. That's on this shoulder, right? And on the other shoulder is, I need to push myself and challenge myself to show up for me, and I need to push myself to do more. Both of these things, kindness to self and pushing yourself, kindness and challenging yourself, they both exist. And you have to give them both attention, okay? You need to listen to yourself. You need to honor your inner world. You need to listen to that and honor that. You also need to push yourself. The only way to establish that fine little gray balance point between those two things is through knowing yourself and self-honesty. Okay? You and you alone know when you're doing right by yourself and when you're not. Only you know that. Some like motivational speaker or whatever can come in and yap at you or whatever, which is not what I'm here to do at all. I'm here to actually dispel a lot of that stuff. And they can say, well, you need to do this and you need to do this. But if they don't know your personal needs and how you personally feel about things, it's not going to matter. Finding the balance point between those two things rests on honesty to self. Am I doing my personal best? Am I okay with how I'm showing up? Do I feel discontentment or frustration? It all rests on the ability to zoom out, practice self-awareness, and basically have a talk with yourself and get your shit together. And if getting your shit together and locating that self-honesty means, you know what? This thing is really taking a serious toll on me, and I'm going to move away from it. And that feels right to you, then that's where you should go. But if you feel that yucky feeling and it's like, hey, I have this goal and it requires the opportunity to push yourself and you know that's what you're supposed to do, be honest with yourself. If you're not being honest with yourself, you're screwed. If you don't know your needs and your own brain and your own inner world, you're screwed. You have to know yourself in order to find that little gray area between those things. Both of these are showing up for yourself in different ways, and they're pulling on each side and each shoulder of you in order to alchemize you knowing what's best for you and discovering it. When you feel that tension and you feel that shame and you feel that contracture and you feel like things are out of whack, that is the alarm bells in your body, your mind, and the structure of your life yelling at you saying, this is not right. Now, so many things could go into that. It could be your physical health. It could be the relationships in your life. It could be so many things. But it's an alarm system that something is off balance. And the key to figuring out what I'm talking about, this amorphous thing that I'm talking about, that I think some of you are picking up on, is the balance between when do I practice kindness with myself? When do I push myself? When am I soft and sweet to myself? And when am I a drill sergeant to myself? That is so, so personal. And everybody is a cocktail of their own things. Some people have crippling chronic illness going on. Some people have rampant neurodivergence. Some people have anxiety disorder. Some people have circumstantial limitations, money, transportation. Like, don't even get me started on all the things that can get in your way. But if you do not know yourself and you do not know your needs and you do not know what works for you and what doesn't work for you, you are completely screwed. When it comes to coaching people through finding what is best for them or how to locate, how to operate, it is not, hey, here's 10 tips or 10 things you should be doing. It is not that. It is meant about locating what works for you and how do you lean into it. How do you leverage your needs and deficits to create a customized life experience that feels good to you? That when you lay down your head at night, you are feeling less suffering, less frustration, and less shame. That is the point. Because if you're not feeling that comfortability in your life, screw it. I'm not trying to be all like YOLO, like it's your life. It is, though. It is your life. And you deserve to have a good life experience. It gets really tricky when it comes to talking people through these types of things because really quickly, in about 5 seconds, you're going to arrive at somebody's self-worth structure. We're going to start talking about social media. Oh, I'm having trouble showing up on social media, or, oh, I'm having trouble getting things done, or I'm struggling with executive dysfunction, or my chronic illness is holding me back. In about 5 whole minutes, we are going to arrive at all mental health issues, all self-worth issues right there because they're right under the surface. Your motivation, how you go about tasks, and how you show up in life is 110% a mirror of what's going on internally. Duh, obviously. How you show up in the world is a reflection of what's going on internally. It's really hard to separate those things. If you're like me and you are emotionally driven, you struggle with mental health, neurodivergence, anxiety disorder, chronic illness, you name it. I have a pyramid of crap on top of me and I struggle. Like, I do not get it twisted that I'm out here like, just light it up, move it. No, dude. I would love to start giving some more like deeper behind the scenes into my life and how I struggle, because I feel like it would make things more real for people. But yeah, it's a mirror, and you're going to arrive immediately at what's going on for you internally, how you feel about yourself. How good are you at showing up for yourself? How good are you at pushing yourself when things are hard? Are you able to listen to yourself when it's time to rest? Do you even hear the voice? It's a delicate balance between what are the real world tips and tricks of how we move through life and how we get through and how we manage, and how did you do that? Customizing that to yourself, and then being honest with yourself. Because right underneath all of those things is going to be your mental health and your self-worth structure. And if you're willing to look at that, then you're on the right track. Because the end goal is not production. It's not matching up with a capitalist hellscape. It's about, how do I create a life that feels good? Can I pay my bills and feel good about my choices and stand by them? That is the end goal at the end of the day. I think what happens a lot is that people get stuck. They get frozen. They get overwhelmed. They get in a freeze state, and they just sit down there. I know what that feels like. I know what it feels like to get overwhelmed, task paralysis. There's too much going on. There's too much to keep up with. The bad news just keeps rolling in. You're never winning. Crisis after crisis will pile on. I know what that feels like. I know what it feels like to be frozen and stuck. You're comparing yourself to others. Your to-do list keeps growing. Shit keeps going wrong. Maybe your future looks bleak, all that stuff. You have to locate fight within yourself. You have to locate fight within yourself. If you don't have it, you're kind of screwed. You got to find that little flame inside you. It can be tiny, but you've got to find that little flame inside you. And when you're building a fire, you see like on Survivor or something, somebody's building a fire and they get that little spark, and it's like everyone's like holding their breath and they're just like cupped around it and they're like feeding it little things really slowly, and they're just like protecting it at all costs because your life literally depends on it. That is the vehemence you need to bring to your little spark of fight or motivation. Whatever you got left, let's say you are rock bottom, because I have been to rock bottom. Let me tell you, I have been there. Bought the t-shirt. They know me by name there at rock bottom. I'm a frequent flyer. Okay. They've got my phone number in their system. It's a whole thing. But I've always had a tiny little flame right there at the bottom that I can foster like somebody starting a fire. And you can gently blow on that, and you can grow and maximize that. So even if that's all you have, that's amazing. That's absolutely amazing. Think about how ecstatic you would be if you were dropped off in the wilderness in some rainy, wet jungle and you got that little spark started. And I'm talking about people that are stuck in overwhelm. They're stuck in burnout. They're stuck in a freeze state. Think about that. Think, if that's all you had, that would be all that mattered. Nothing else matters. When you're out there, you're not thinking about your to-do list, your car. All you're thinking about is you've been dropped in the wilderness and you got that little spark, and that's your whole world. When you are at rock bottom, or you're in a freeze state, or you're in a shutdown state, you're in burnout, do you still have that? Do you still have that? If you have that, you're good to go. You can build on that. If you have that little spark of motivation, that little thing, that little bit of fight in you, that's all you need to overcome being frozen, stuck, and you will arrive there many times. What I'm talking about is not a one-time thing. This is a practice of life. What I have personally found is that life moves in seasons, man. It sounds cliche, it sounds cringy, but life moves in seasons. Woo! It is up and down. It's a rubber band. It's an oval. Now, are there people out there like normies, neurotypicals, or whatever, that aren't having that. They're having like an even keel experience. They're not dealing with a lot of ups and downs. They pretty much just go about their stuff. Yeah, sure. I don't believe it, but I've been told stories that there are people out there that live like that. I don't. I am a different freaking person every week. I swear to God. And then throw into that equation, let's say you are a menstruating human. Let's add that little cookie onto the pile, right? That you can't even have a regulated hormone and nervous system from week to week. There's a lot of stuff stacked against us, guys. But I know that a lot of you have that little spark, that little piece of that fire inside you, even if it is so tiny and you still have it. You know how I know that? Because you could be having a horrible week, and then the next week I see you showing up. And I'm like, okay, look who didn't give up. Look who's still here. And as long as you can foster that and baby that into something bigger, that's the edge I want to give. That's the edge I want to give. And can you build an environment around that little spark so that that fire can succeed? You're doing better than you think. Like if you're in that freeze state and you are just shut down and you're like, Ezra, shut up. I'm sure that happens a lot of times that people are like, I wish this woman would shut the fuck up. Talking about happiness and motivation and tasks and organizing and discipline and consistency, you probably want to sock me in the freaking mouth. And I get it. I get it. Oh, I would just want to flick me in the face if I were you too. But I do see that little glimmer of fight. And I think that you can build on that. I really do. And I will be a believer till the day that I die that you can build on that. That there's something there that you can work with. And when I say you're doing better than you think, I really mean it. There are people who give up, okay? There are people who just throw in the towel. There are people that give up. And you can totally do that. You're allowed to be like, you know what? Screw it. And be like, I'm just going to spend the rest of my life. I'm going to drink myself to death. I'm going to choose drugs. I'm going to choose violence. I'm going to choose to become a hoarder and not care about my environment. I'm going to let my brain and my body go. You could do that, but you're not. And you haven't. So you have something and you're doing better than you think. You are doing so much better than you think. But if you feel that pull of like, I should be showing up more, I can be doing more, then you need to follow that. You have a responsibility to follow that. And then that circles back to us finding out, knowing ourselves and practicing self-honesty of what does that road look like? What parts of it are the kindness and the softness, and what parts are the pushing and the discipline? And what recipe works for me? And here's the kicker. That recipe needs to have fluidity. If you are neurodivergent, you're dealing with hormone issues, things like that are affecting you from week to week, month to month in these cycles, anything, mental health, you have to allow those two things to move. Like when we build like a dock or like, like a ship or like the siding on a house, you don't want it to be completely bolted down because when storms come, you want it to have a little bit of give. Like when there's a skyscraper, you don't want a skyscraper to be rigid against the wind that's going to smack it. You want that structure to have a little bit of give. You want it to move a little bit. And that's the kind of life plan that you want to create because it's going to give you that balance point that this is a week where I am ready to be kind to myself. And this is a week where I need to push myself. And only you can figure out that answer. Now, sometimes you need someone to help you, like what I'm talking about. You need creative solutions. You need to think outside the box. You need to hear from other people who have lived experience. Yes, those things are going to help you, but it really starts with you knowing yourself and meeting yourself and finding out what's right below that surface when it comes to your mental health, your self-worth, what gives you dopamine, what's crushing you. That's what you need to find out first. Also, if you're not drinking out of a jar, you should do that. You should try that. I don't know. It's just makes life taste better. I don't know. It's whimsical. The biggest overarching thing that I want to break down is that what I have to say about this topic and how I operate is much less about you need to push yourself and do more It is much less about that. It's like 80-20, okay? It's 20% you need to get your butt into gear and get your shit together. And it's 80% showing up for yourself. Now, isn't that a different feel, right? When you try on the suit of, you need to do this, you need to get after this, or you're a piece of crap or whatever, that don't feel good. That's not very motivating, is it? But when you try on the vibe of, hey, I'm going to show up for myself in this way, man, that hits different. That hits different. Real world example for me, I have a lot of trouble with intentional exercising. It's not something that appeals to me, and I'm neurodivergent. We can talk about that. If you don't have bliss coupled with what you're doing, it's not going to happen. I just don't like it. I don't enjoy it. Unintentional exercise, cool. I can do that. Intentional exercise, going to a gym, doing like reps, no, no, I'm not doing it. Forget about it. However, when I try on the idea of, you need to exercise because that's good for you and you need to lose weight and that's what you should be doing, it ain't gonna happen. When I try on the idea of, I'm going to show up for myself and keep my promises to me because I like her and I want her to be proud of me, ooh, I'm on that treadmill. See what I'm saying? We're not talking about further shaming and tips and tricks. We're talking about what makes it click for you. When I do my walk on my treadmill, first of all, I have to have self-honesty. I have to have self-awareness, and I have to know what works for me. Those are all precursors. Once I get past that, which is really hard and usually requires help, then I can get into, I'm going to pull out my treadmill and I'm going to do 30 minutes. I'm going to do a 30-minute walk while I watch my show. That's how I hack myself in that. And then I'm going to feel really good. I'm going to have this nice little dopamine thing that I can tell myself, I showed up for myself today in that way. And that was really cool. And again, we circle back and we arrive at how we feel about ourselves, our self-worth structure, how we show up for ourselves, how much self-awareness we have, and then that other shoulder here of, are we pushing ourselves? But none of that matters if it doesn't feel good in the brain. And again, I'm talking a lot to my neurodivergent baddies. If it does not feel good to your brain, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And so how can you engineer your life to make sure that what you're doing and how you're going about it is appealing to your brain and your body? That's what it is. That's what it boils down to. Now, is it always that way? No. And that's where we get that fluidity of shifting between what is kind, what feels good, how am I coupling things with my dopamine structure, and when am I pushing myself? We got to use both. We got to use both. Are there normies, neurotypicals out there that are just drawing on the one and they're just like, I need to do this and I'm going to push through it? Yes, there are. We are not those people. We are not. Now, does that mean that then you can just sit down in your life, not achieve your goals, not do what you need to do, not be kind to yourself, not care about yourself, not show up for yourself? Yes, you can do that, but are you liking it? How do you really feel about that? Do you feel good? No. Is that good enough for you? Do you deserve that? Does your inner child deserve that? No. Absolutely not. Now let's address something else. Let's say you are beat down. You're frozen, you're overwhelmed, you're burnt out, you're freaking cooked. Be there. Radically allow yourself to be there. Do you believe you're allowed to be there? Or are you still listening to should be doing this, should be this? I hear it. It matters. Yeah. But that's not where I'm at right now. But the difference is, friend, we're not going to stay there. We're going to do what we can when we're down. And then we're going to make a plan to get back up. We're not going to stay there. It's okay to lay down and say, I am defeated right now and I am claiming rest for myself. And something is not right with my spirit and it's not right with my body. And I'm not okay right now. Radically be there. Get out of the shame producing push-pull and just take a break and allow yourself to fully be there. Let's say you still want to show up on social media while you're doing that. Drawings from my bed. You're an artist, you're in a time of burnout and depression. Drawings from my bed. This is the art I can do in my bed while I watch Netflix, because that's all I can muster. Maybe a video of you journaling about what you're struggling with. You see what I'm saying? It's all part of the life process. It's all part of it. And we cannot continue to uphold a false narrative. I'm always going back to social media because it's such a mirror, and it's something that I think a lot of people struggle with and come to me about. We cannot uphold a false narrative of what life is. Life is not posting a new trendy thing every fucking day. No, it's not. That's not real life. Sometimes it is when you're up. When you're not, sequester yourself away and say bye, be back later. And radically allow, it's about fully being where you're at. Or bring folks with you. That's the most authentic thing, and that's what people are going to resonate with. Because somebody else is going to see that and be like, wow, it's not all or nothing. I can do sketches in my journal and show those, and that's really cool because this is what I'm struggling with. And then I'll be back up and motivated later. Taking the waves of life and learning how to surf. You're not going to be this boulder, this lighthouse that's just impenetrable to anything that comes your way. It's not real. Stop creating an expectation that it's real. It's not. You have to surf above it. And that requires self-honesty, radical allowance, self-awareness, all these things. They go right back into self-awareness and mental health immediately. And that's how you show up in the world. When I was in the deepest throes of my anxiety disorder or panic disorder, I was diagnosed with agoraphobia, obsessive compulsive. I mean, no one knows this because I wasn't out in the world. I was radically allowing myself to be where I was at because I had no choice. I was completely debilitated with mental health issues, and I still struggle with some of those to this day, but nowhere near like I used to. And that went on for years. And that was hard, let me tell you. The thing that changed the tune for me was a teacher, Dennis Simsek. Shout out to the man that literally saved my freaking life. If you have anxiety, go listen to him. I can link him below in the description or something like that. Love that man with my whole heart. Oh my God. He told me something that blew my mind. And this is the other myth I want to dispel real quick, is that who told you that life was supposed to feel good all the time? Where did you get that idea? Who told you that? Whoever told you that lied to you. Whether it was media or movies or someone else in your life you were comparing yourself to, it's a lie. It's a flat out lie. The majority of the substrate of life is boring, monotonous, frustrating, and sucky. That's most of it, with like highlights of cool shit in between. Definitely social media twists this for us big time. That was what changed things for me so much. That was one of those points of light in crippling mental health issues that just changed the tune for me, because I had an idea set up in my life. I had gotten a lot of that messaging through like the hippie community and like the spiritual community, that I was supposed to be having this like Zen, like stable life experience where I was just like so present all the time. That's a lie. That is a lie that is being cultivated by social media, by movies, because a huge portion of the anxiety that I was being crippled by was me reaching for that ideal that I had set up, reaching upwards for that. When you're reaching up for something or trying to get to some should, you are creating suffering for yourself to a degree. I was creating so much suffering because I had an ideal set up in my mind that wasn't true. It was inaccurate. As soon as I realized, oh, the dirt of life, the substrate of life, the actual like matter in between the moments of life is actually like boring monotony and regularity, I was like, wow, okay. And I could start to radically allow myself to just be in a blah mood or a neutral place or a bad place, because that's actually kind of what life is. And trying to keep that up will harm you. you will harm yourself. You will either create suffering and polarization within yourself that you will forever be dealing with until you dismantle that, or you will be living an authentic life trying to keep up with something that you can't keep up with. And I have so much specific information to share and creative solutions. And what I want to make clear is that there are many times in my life where that little fire, that little spark of motivation for me has been so small. And there are times when it is a raging fire. Okay. And I'm sure you all have borne witness to that. The best times has been when it's somewhere in between. Somewhere in between. The key to more peace and stability is radically allowing however big that flame is or however small it is, and knowing myself and being honest with myself about where do I want to go next. If you're neurodivergent, you know this better than anyone. That fluidity of mind and body and life circumstances is the key. A lot of us are neurodivergent. You see us, we're entrepreneurs. We work for ourselves. We don't do well working a 9 to 5 or for a certain boss because it doesn't appeal to us. So why wouldn't we structure the rest of our lives that way? So that's what I want to start unpacking with you guys and with myself, to just share the little bit that I've learned that's given me enough comfortability in life to function, in hopes that maybe it can help somebody else who's struggling with the same things. Stay tuned. We'll keep talking more on this topic. Feel free to comment with questions, frustrations below, because I can directly address what you're dealing with, at least from what I've experienced, and hopefully it will help.